Why are parallel fifths bad? Hello, welcome to Jim Lab Stoplight Music Theory. So first of all, parallel fifths are not bad. The first harmonies added to Gregorian chants were largely parallel octaves and parallel fifths. Nothing in music theory in a vacuum objectively is good or bad. It's just patterns in music that people have chosen to use or chosen not to use. You can reason your way around it, but it's basically a choice rather than a logical step of some kind. And most music theory is like that. Now, culturally is a completely different story whether something elicits feelings of good or bad. In Western music theory, we almost always teach the music of Johann Sebastian Bach's four-part chorales, and he wrote a lot of them. Music theorists went back and analyzed all of them and found lots of patterns that Bach stuck to, things that he did and things that he didn't do. And one of the things that Bach very rarely ever did, he did it a couple times, but very rarely, were parallel perfect intervals. Perfect means there is no major or minor, so that's the octave, unison, perfect fourth, and perfect fifth. So Bach never used parallel octaves, parallel fourths, parallel fifths in his chorales especially. He probably didn't use it in most of his other compositions as well. In that late Baroque era, there was this idea that you needed to write several melodies at the same time that weren't copies of each other. When you write in thirds, the intervals are a little different every time. In parallel fourths and fifths, the intervals are almost exactly the same. It's seen as you're not writing a new melody, you're just transposing it up. It was considered good practice to write several melodies that when you put them on top of each other fit. And that's basically where that practice comes from. It's easier to grade on Bach because it has enough rules that you have to spend time learning them, and it's consistent enough that someone can actually grade you on your accuracy. Because outside of that, it's all pretty much whatever the fad was at the time. The person who generally we think of having broken the hold on classical music is Debussy, who would just do parallel chords, parallel thirds, parallel fifths, parallel fourths, parallel octaves, parallel everything. He loved that. They call it planing, using the same chord formations to go up in a melody. And they're used all the time in rock music, starting with the blues, going into rock and roll, splitting into genres of rock. Most people know them as power chords. Chords root, fifth, root, almost all parallel fifths. It's just a tendency of a very specific era of Western classical music that you are not supposed to write. Music theory is not rules, it's patterns and tendencies. So those are my thoughts. Hopefully that makes some amount of sense.